Breakups can be messy. We all know that. But can they actually be criminal? That's the question we're diving into today. We're going to look at a really important Supreme Court case that asks something pretty fundamental. Does a law meant to protect you from domestic violence just stop working the second you break up?
So yeah, that's the big question, right? Does a protective law just expire when a relationship does? This isn't just some abstract legal debate. It's about safety, it's about justice, especially since we know conflicts don't always end with the breakup. To really get what's at stake here, we have to look at the actual story, the real people that brought this whole issue to the Supreme Court.
All right, let's set the scene. What's interesting here is that our story doesn't even begin during the relationship. It starts after it was already over. We've got two people who've split up, they've gone their separate ways, but, there is still this one really explosive confrontation waiting to happen.
Okay, so here's the play-by-play. It's July 13th, 2009. It all kicks off with something pretty common, a debt. A woman goes to her ex-boyfriend's place to get some money he owed her. But the topic changes. She asks him, "Are you spreading rumors about me?" And he admits it. So she slaps him. But his reaction? It went way, way beyond that. It escalated into real physical violence.
And the court records are pretty clear about what happened next. Her hair was pulled, she was punched, not once but multiple times, in the back, the shoulder, and her left eye. Look, this wasn't just some minor scuffle. This was a serious physical assault, and it's the very thing that kicked off this whole legal battle.
Okay, and this is where things get really interesting from a legal standpoint. The ex-boyfriend's lawyers get to court, and they don't just argue, self-defense or something like that. Nope. They come up with this really creative, really novel argument. They're basically trying to find a loophole that could get the whole case thrown out.
So what was their big argument? It boiled down to this. Hey, yeah, maybe something happened, but we had already broken up. So you can't charge me under this special anti-violence law. It doesn't apply to me anymore. He was literally arguing that the law's protections vanished the second the relationship ended.
So you can see the two sides laid out here, right? On one side, his team is saying, this is just a common crime, slight physical injuries. It belongs in a lower court. But on the other side, the state is saying, no, this is a special crime, violence against women, under a very specific law. And that's because of their past relationship. That makes it way more serious and means it has to be heard in a higher court. This wasn't just a small detail. It was a fight over what this crime actually was.
Now, to make this official, his lawyers filed something with a fancy legal name, a motion to quash the information. Don't worry about the jargon. All it really means is they're telling the judge, look, even if you believe every single thing the other side is saying, the facts just don't add up to the specific crime they're charging him with. So you have to toss this case out.
So how do you settle an argument like this? You go straight to the rule book, right? The courts had to look at the actual words written in the law. The big question they needed to answer was, does this law anywhere say that the relationship has to be ongoing for it to count?
And here it is, the smoking gun, right in the text of the law. It says the law applies to violence committed by someone against a woman with whom the person has or had a sexual or dating relationship. Boom, there it is. Those two little words, or had. That changes everything. It's almost like the law was written with this exact kind of situation in mind.
So if you strip it all down, the law is actually pretty simple. It has just two requirements. First, the offender has or had a relationship with the woman. Second, his actions caused harm. That's it. It's pretty straightforward. But the defense was trying to sneak in a third requirement, one that isn't written down anywhere, that the violence had to be caused by the relationship. The court had to figure out, is that really in there?
Well, the first court wasn't buying it. They denied his motion, but he didn't stop there. He appealed it all the way to the Supreme Court. So now this whole debate is in front of the highest court in the land. Was this loophole he was arguing for actually real? It was all going to come down to how they interpreted those two tiny, crucial words, or had.
And the Supreme Court's answer? It was crystal clear. They said, the past matters. Period. Just because the relationship was over, that didn't give him a free pass. It could still absolutely be treated as a domestic violence case. And if you want the final word, just look at this quote right from their decision. It just nails it. The court says, "It is not indispensable that the act of violence be a consequence of such relationship." In plain English, the law doesn't say the violence has to be because of the relationship. It just says a relationship had to exist at some point. They looked high and low and couldn't find that limitation anywhere in the law.
And the court's reasoning here is so clear, it's like a step-by-step guide. Step 1. The law plainly says has or had. It covers the past. Step 2. The law does not say the violence has to be caused by the relationship. That's just not in there. Step 3. And this is a huge rule in law. Courts can't just invent new requirements that the lawmakers didn't write down. So the conclusion is unavoidable. The timing doesn't matter. As long as there was a relationship, the law applies.
Okay, so a court made a decision. Why should you or I care about this one specific case? Well, it's a huge deal because it sets a precedent. It's a game changer. So, let's talk about what this ruling really means for everyone else out there.
The impact here is honestly massive. This decision basically slammed the door shut on a huge potential loophole for abusers. It means someone can't just say, "Oh, we broke up 5 minutes ago, so the special protections don't count anymore." The court made it clear they weren't going to let the law become, as they put it, toothless.
So, let's wrap this up with the big takeaways. What are the most important things to remember? First, a law's protective shield doesn't just vanish when a relationship ends. Second, and this is so important, the law gets it. It understands that the toxic parts of a relationship, that power imbalance and potential for violence, can stick around long after the breakup. And finally, this decision just reinforces the whole point of the law, to protect women from violence no matter their current relationship status.
And that brings us back to our big question, but maybe with a new perspective. How does the law see a relationship, even after it's over? Well, after this ruling, the answer is pretty profound. It sees it not just as a status, but as a history that matters, that carries weight, and that continues to demand protection long after you might think the final chapter has been written.